Alright, so I'm going to be going through the first section of the trigonometric functions unit, talking about angles as rotations and angles of rotation and coterminal angles. So, although trig comes from right triangles, many situations involve angles which are larger than those in triangles, so things that are bigger than 180 degrees. In the study of trigonometry, we often think of angles as rotations of a certain number of degrees around a circle. So we see it as rotating however far around that we're going to go, and there can be all these different angle measures, as you can probably figure out. So a rotation clockwise, so going in the clockwise direction, is negative, and a rotation counterclockwise, so going against the clock, is positive. So this first one here, this is a positive rotation, and the second one over here is a negative rotation. The ray of the angle at which the rotation begins is called the initial side. So it's the INITIAL side, the initial side, which means starting side. The ray where the rotation ends is called the terminal side. Kind of makes sense, and we have a diagram over here. So we have our initial side going along the x-axis, and we have our terminal side is where our angle ends, and in between that is our actual angle. In order to study angles as rotations, we look at them as central angles and arcs of a circle on the coordinate plane. If an angle is in what's called standard position, it means that its initial side is on the positive x-axis. So it means that the initial side has to be right here. If it's not, it is not in standard position, and we're not going to be working with things like that so much. So we classify angles by the quadrants in which their terminal side lies. So this would be this first one here. This would be a first quadrant angle. And I'm going to start using the symbol for angle. And that would be anywhere between 0 and 90 degrees. The second one is a second quadrant angle. And that's anywhere between 90 and 180 degrees. Sorry, I should put degree signs on those first ones. The third here is a third quadrant angle. And you can probably figure out that's anywhere between 90 degrees and 270 degrees. Oops. And the last one, I bet you could probably figure it out, what quadrant it is. It's the fourth quadrant. So it's a fourth quadrant angle going down here, and is anywhere between 270. Having some trouble writing all of a sudden. And 360 degrees. An angle in standard position whose terminal side lies on an axis is called a quadrantal angle. A quadrantal angle. The degree measure of a quadrantal angle will be either 90 degrees, actually sorry, it will be 0 degrees is the first one, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, or 360 degrees. So as you can see here, we have a 90 degree angle, we have a 180 degree angle, which is a straight line, 270 goes all the way around in this direction. You have a negative 90 degree angle here because it's going backwards. You could also have things like, and you might want to write these down over in this area here, a 0 degree angle looks just like a ray because both the initial side and the terminal side are pointing in the same direction. And you could also have a 360 degree, which looks almost like that. So you have your initial side, and then if you rotate all the way around, you have your terminal side. So this is actually a 360 degree angle. This one was a 0 degree angle. You might want to sketch both of those in up over here. So as we rotate angles greater than 360 degrees, it starts a second rotation around the circle. The terminal sides of these angles lie on top of other angles between 0 and 360s. So angles which share a terminal side are called coterminal, which means they end in the same place. So, for example, there's several different things you can call this. So if we are looking at this angle right here, you have 270 degrees. You could also call this negative 90, and you could also go all the way around and come back to it, if that makes sense. You go to it once and then back around to it, so that would actually be 270 degrees plus another 360 degrees, which would give you 530 degrees. So this black angle here is 530 degrees, and it actually goes around more than one time. So if we want to find the angles coterminal with the given angle and the smallest possible positive measure, so we want the smallest positive measure. Those are two very important things. So to get that, if we're looking at 500 degrees, a 500 degree angle would be, well, here's 360, and then you want to go even further than that. So there's 360, and then 500 would lie somewhere over here, somewhere in this quadrant. I'm not sure exactly where, but we're going to find that out right now. So if we wanted to figure out just what this measure is right here, we would take away this inside piece, which we know measures 360. So you're taking the whole thing, which was 500, and you're subtracting away 360 of it, which is going to leave you with just the red piece. So if you subtract that out, you end up with 0, a little bit of subtraction here, and you end up with 140 degrees. So actually I was a little off. It would be up in this quadrant somewhere. But you end up with 140 degrees. The reason we know that's correct is because if you subtracted another 360, you would end up with a negative answer. So you don't want to do that, because again, it said the smallest positive number. Similarly, looking at the second one here, we have negative 420. So that means now, instead of going in the positive direction, we're going to be going in the negative direction. So we go around once, and that gets us 360, and then we need to figure out exactly where this ends again. So I'm just going to draw it over to here somewhere, and you'll get the idea. So we have our negative 420. Now to get rid of that 360 degrees, this first rotation around here, instead of subtracting now, we're going to add 360 degrees. So that will be left with just the extra little piece here. So negative 420 plus 360 ends up to be negative 140 degrees, which now that's still an issue because we want to know, again, what is the smallest positive number. So to make this a positive angle, we need to figure out how to get that to a positive. So we would again add another 360. So in this case, if you add another 360, you end up with 220 degrees, which means that if you go from this side over here and rotate around, you have positive 220, just like this is negative 140. But again, it said the smallest possible positive number. So we have what we've actually done there is we've taken our whole circle around, and we know our angle is down over here. If we know that this piece is negative 140, adding that 360 on gives us the other half of it right here, which ends up being 220. So that is our final answer for that one. If we want to find the measure of three angles coterminal with 120 degrees, that's actually super easy. There's a bunch of ways to do it. So let's start off with 120 degrees, which is right in here somewhere. So we know this, the black part here, is 120. Well, if we want to find a coterminal side, we can add 360 on. So we end up back here. So our red one there is going to be 480 degrees. If you wanted to find another coterminal angle, you could again add another 360 on. So you'd end up with 840 degrees. So the purple one there is 840. There is one other way you could do it. If you have your 120 degrees here, and you want to figure out what the other way is, you could actually subtract 360 and figure out the other one. So you have your 120, and you're going to subtract 360, and if you do that, you end up with negative 240. So we actually have three different answers here. We could have 480 as one of our answers, 840 is another one, and negative 240 is a third one. We're going to practice this a little bit in class tomorrow. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night, and I will see you tomorrow.